Hello, music lovers. Welcome back. So after some of your questions on last month's sound design challenge, one thing that became apparent was good ear training isn't just an advantage for sound design in terms of synthesis. One of the reasons I can work so fast, and probably one of the reasons I'm hired as a ghost, is my ability to recognize existing sounds, not just synthesized ones. Be it the cowbell from an 808 drum machine, or the difference between a conga and a bongo. Especially for those who are new to this. Just recognizing the difference between a synth and a sample could save you a lot of hours wondering why that synthesizer can't make a saxophone sound. That brings us to this week's subject, organic house. Over this last year, I've found myself making more and more of it. And this genre is a great excuse to educate you on the names of lots of cool sounds. So we're going to build a track, and as we go, name the ingredients. And not only that, every single sound, sample, and effect I'm using today are from free sources. So you guys also have access to the same ingredients. Let's go. Okay, let's start off with the kick drum. So-called 4 on the floor, 1 every quarter note. You know the drill by now. This is a free kick from the PML, Production Music Live Taster Sample Pack. This one's appropriately named Organica Kick 024. Now, hear that little shaker on the top? Especially this little after ring. Now, normally I would delete that, but this is organic house, baby. However, it is a little bright, so we're going to use Nova EQ for its low-pass filter. I just want to reduce some of that tick at the top. I can hear ahead that that might become too distracting. Close enough for jazz, as they say. Right, next, shakers. The general trend, I find, is to have a couple of shaker layers. A very high one for the top-end sizzle, and more of a mid-range rattler. Now, shakers come in lots of flavors. If you want the high-pitched, sizzly stuff, that's egg shakers or just normal shakers. The mid-range stuff tends to be cabasas, maracas, and there's a great drum called a shakiri. Regarding free samples, there's a great pack simply called Shake from the website elephant.io. That's spelt elephant with no vowels except the first E. It sounds like it's mostly maracas, but there are some tambourines in there for high sizzle. But the rest is great for covering that mid-range. Let's take that one for our mid-range shaker. And as you can see, I already have a STFU plugin loaded, the volume envelope plugin for virtual sidechain. That's good stuff. Sounding very organic already. Now, with all acoustic samples, it's wise to be wary of bass frequency leakage. Anything that moves air towards a microphone can result in some very low frequencies. So we're going to use Slick EQ here for its high-pass filter. Probably just going to dial that all the way up. Okay, we could use a tambourine for high sizzle, but I'm going to look for some other shakers in a different pack. See if I can give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's try the PML pack again. I like that percussion. That would be good to pick up pace later on, but not now. Those have got the right frequencies, but the loop is too slow. That's the pace we need, but that's not got the high frequencies either. We could always try pitching a loop up, but I'd rather try and find it at sourced organically, as it were. Let's see what I grabbed from the Looperman website. I just grabbed all kinds of percussion that sounded like it might come in useful. That's nice. If I remember, I shall come back to that. Incredible what you can get for free these days. Ooh, simple shaker loop is close. That is a shaker loop and a clave. We'll get to clave soon. That was close as well. Oh, here we go. Little Tristou shaker from Looperman. That's exactly what the doctor ordered. Okay, there's our two shakers in place. Next up, we need to look at what's called clave rhythm. I recommend a great video by 12 Tone on clave rhythm. Very important to most Afro-Latin music. You can use an actual clave, or also woodblocks, cowbells, that kind of thing. High, snappy percussion. Actually, why don't we just start with clave so you can hear them. That's not a clave, that's a clavinet. Ah, here we go. Perfect. So let me show you clave rhythm. You'll probably recognize it. I'm going to add a little swing because I can hear our shakers are swinging slightly. So that's clave rhythm. And the cool thing is you can start it on different beats of the bar too. As 12 Tone termed it, this is Latin America's wonky metronome. Most of the rhythm is based around this. Now, as long as we keep this rhythmic element in there, in organic house, we don't have to keep this as a clave part. We could try this on a lower drum, something like a djembe. As you can see, I've grabbed a few here from Noiz, noiiz.com. A free account there will get you 50 megabytes for downloads, which is actually plenty for one-shot drums. Okay, let's swap the clave out for this. Lots of lower drums will work here, not just djembe. We've got darbukas, dumbek, even snare. Does the PML pack have a snare? Yeah, that's a good one. Let's get rid of that echo. So for your clave rhythm part, it can be an upper percussion part, mid percussion, lower percussion. And it's all down to kind of what energy level you want to go for in the track. I'm going to keep this light for now because I need the space. I've got lots of sounds to show you. So let's go back to the clave. Now, also quite common is the option of a second percussion part. It's going to bounce off the clave rhythm. So because we've gone high with the clave, I'm going to go low with this. This is going to fill the same kind of role as the toms you sometimes get in traditional house. So we're looking for lower drums. As I said, that could be djembes, darbukas, dumbeks. Also from the Latin side, congas, tumbas, cajons. What did I grab? Sounding good. I only need one of these hits though. Let me give you an example of the lower percussion part. Usually much simpler than the clave. Something like that. You may notice we have a slick EQ already there. That's taking out some of the lower frequencies. We don't want this to be deeper than the kick. So this can be as simple as that, or we can have something nearer a bass line. Something like that. I'm feeling that. Let's turn that up. Okay, so far so good. Kick in place, our shaker loops, we have our clave rhythm, and our, let's call it, counter percussion part. Next up in most of these tracks, what I call the pace synth. Whether it's Muju, Black Coffee, NME, or Alex Wan, they all have this. I've made a synth patch all ready to go. It's in Vital, of course. Obviously, link in the description. The key of A is as good as any. These parts tend to serve the function of an ARP, but they stick to one note usually the tonic, which is note 1, or note 5. I'm just going to start with the clave rhythm. Now, it doesn't have to be on that rhythm. That's a good starting point, but the role of the part is basically just to keep pace. Let's just try a row of 16ths. Let me adjust this attack automation first. Shorten the notes. So you could go higher energy like this on full 16ths. Let's try and add some dynamics. Play around with these velocities here. So as you can hear, that's quite high energy. If you'd gone with a bigger sounding drum for the clave part, maybe that would be more appropriate. So obviously you have options in between. I'm going to go back to the simpler one. Keep this chill. Let's shorten some notes. To make this a 4-bar loop and add some variations. And on the turnaround, I'm going to do what I call a little roll or drill. Just adding a couple of 30-second notes instead of 16ths. A little bit of variation never hurts. Not too much though, of course. Add a little skipping note here. The delay on that synth is doing the rest for us, really. Sounding good. There is our synth roller ARP thing. Okay, on to bass. There's a few different ways we can approach bass parts in Organic House. I've lined up 3 different sounds here for 3 different kinds of part. I've got what I call the long stab, just a long simple note, Muju style. Then there's the pad, like a soft Reese bass. And then we've got the woody sound, I've called it, which is just for more active lines. Let me show you the simple kind. To start with, the long stab. What I've noticed artists like Muju doing. So I'm going to place 1 note on the offbeat 8th there. Super simple, super effective. Obviously, it's going to depend on that lower percussion part. Let me show you the held pad. Obviously, that's just a long note. Hopefully, you can hear how that's changed the groove. Depending on your outlook, that's either more chill or more tense, but it's definitely less groovy. And let me show you what I would call the more active kind of bass line. More rhythmic, slightly more melodic. Something like this. Okay. Subject to change, obviously, and depends on what else is around it. It might not work well if our chords move in certain directions, for example. That brings us on to chords. Let's add a pad. Let's just draw in our A minor triad here. going to make this 4 bars long. I don't want that to keep repeating like that. So I've got 4 different pad options lined up for you here. We start with the synth, the pad in Vital. I called this patch the VHS Oberheim. It's kind of warm and wobbly. As far as synths go, it's a very organic sounding patch. Lots of oscillator drift and other random elements. And we have this whole thing feeding into the wonderful Dragonfly reverb Hall algorithm. If you need long, atmospheric, smooth tails, that's your go-to. In fact, if you take the dry signal out, it will turn anything into a pad. Moving on, another go-to option for pads for me is Spitfire Labs. Labs is a container for many different free instruments, and most of them are great for pads. We have synths, pianos, strings, other things that have been turned into pads, like the London Underground. And it seems like they add a new one every couple of months, too. Oh, there was one. Textural pads. Let's grab that. I find that a lot of the sounds in Labs make great textural layers to traditional soft synth pads. Textural pads isn't just an apt description for this collection. Nice, interesting harmonic there. I want to hear that up the octave. Let's have a listen. Plus 12. There we go. Hopefully you can hear what I mean about adding texture to other synth pads. So Labs, we'll be using more of that soon. Make sure you grab it. Hundreds of free instruments inside that. Next up, organs. Specifically Hammond organs, like the B3. And there's a great free one by a company called Lost in 70s, called the Hanon B70. Clearly a play on the word Hammond, the famous organ manufacturer. Lost in 70s also do a great Rhodes piano in the Keys of the 70s plugin, also free. Back to our organ here though. As you can see, we have full control over all our drawbars, which are our harmonics. I'm just going to keep this simple, stick to the white bars, which are the even harmonics. And last but not least, how about some symphonic strings? We can't talk about organic sound without talking about strings. Spitfire's BBC Symphony Orchestra, another great freebie. I've selected the cellos here, or should I say celli? Violas would also be a good choice. Depends on the octave. Violins probably won't get low enough for these kind of pads. You could always try layering some. I'm going to stick to cello here. Now bear in mind with this plugin, all the orchestra sounds are recorded in their seating position, so the cellos are off to the right. Here you can see I've used the free A1 stereo control to pull us back nearer the middle. As for effects, we're going into the usual Dragonfly reverb, and we're taking off the low end with Slick EQ's high pass filter. I don't think that's doing anything else. So 4 great pad options you can play with. I'm going to take it back to the synth. Okay, next up, let's talk melodies and lead lines. If you said the words organic melody to me, it would bring to mind mallet instruments like a xylophone or marimba. And apparently I'm not the only one. Luckily for us, Alan Vista has us covered on the free instrument front. He makes the old reliable eXylo and Marimba Phonic plugins. They've been around for a while, but they still do the job. And they're available for modern platforms, 64-bit, Mac and PC. Just good, simple samples of a xylophone and a marimba. Now, a marimba on its own is quite a soft sound, but if you layer it with a xylophone, you get a lot more attack. And also the xylophone here is 1 octave above the marimba, which sounds great when stacked. Let's try some licks. As usual, just keeping to the white notes, trying some stuff out. Just try to make sure it's got a beginning and an end and a way of looping on itself. I do have videos on making melodies. Here, because of the Latin groove, I'm trying to make sure I include some syncopation. For example, listen to how much less groovy this would be without this syncopated note. Syncopated notes are the ones in between the eighths. So on a 16 grid, it's every other note, basically. Like these. And this one. How much less groovy is this? Actually, that one's fine. It kind of works with our bass. Sounding good. Let me show you how it sounds if we add some harmonies. Nice, there's one option for a melody. Now, as an alternative, if you want to lean a little bit more on the electronic side, I've made a couple of synth patches. We have a virtual mallet. Sounds like this. I know I said synths couldn't do acoustic sound in the intro, but I think I've done rather well here. Here's some tone options. Also made a patch called Jaguar Organ. Any DJ Rolando fans in the house? If you know, you know. As for effects, again we're going through Slick EQ for the high pass filter. For the delay, I'm using Delay by 6 Sample, another great freebie. Probably the most comprehensive delay on the market, paid or free. All options covered pretty much, apart from tape maybe. As for the reverb, I needed something brighter than Dragonfly, so we've gone with Tal 4. Stuff. Moving on, let's look at some other melody options. So here we have a guitar sample, but it's not any guitar. The most common sound I hear in this genre is something called a palm muted electric guitar. So this sample is taken from a pack called Mute and Slap by Petting House. It's actually a library for Native Instruments Contact, but you can still access the samples inside the folder. And I've just grabbed one of them here. You should recognize the sound when I play it now. Let's try a new melody. Sounds good to me. And now you know what that sound is. A muted electric guitar, probably a Stratocaster if you were to push me. The sample I grabbed here was muted 11 SLL3. By the way, it's an A note, so you'll need to pitch it up 3 semitones to work in your sampler, because samplers typically expect things to be a C. So if you use the same sample, pitch it up 3 and it will play the correct notes on the keyboard. As for the effects, much the same as the other patch. We have high pass filter from Slick, we have delay, but the reverb is coming from Magic Dice. Incredible sounding reverb from Baby Audio. It's supposed to be random, but I've made a bunch of presets for it, so make sure you grab those. And lastly, a little bit of stereo touch from Voxengo. In my opinion, still the best and safest way of turning a mono sound into stereo. Last but not least, another great option for melodies, one of my favourite instruments, a hand pan. A company called Ample make a great free hand pan plugin. They also make a fantastic free acoustic guitar. This is called Cloud Drum, and I like it on the mute setting. Adjusting the decay on this envelope lets you loosen or tighten it up. There's a sample layer, an ambience layer, and a synth layer to help support the sound. Now your track doesn't have to contain a melody element, it's all dependent on the level of energy you're going for. We could use any of these sounds for just kind of decoration and sprinkles. What if I just run down the notes of the first chord here, A, C, E, and trigger this every 8 bars? Oh, even that top note sounds okay. Could use it as an upper percussion part, maybe. Okay, sounding great so far. That's most of our instruments in place. What about a chord progression? I've got 4 different types to show you. Let me just mute all of the melodies for now. And how could I forget to mention this instrument? Let's use a piano. Again, Spitfire Labs. There's a great piano you can download for it called the Autograph Grand. It's a recent addition, and I'm very grateful because up until now the free options for realistic sounding pianos haven't been the best. So our first progression is what I call the falling progression. It uses chords 1, 7 and 6 in the downward direction. It's falling. Let me draw those bass notes in. We just build the chord on top of that. If you don't know how to build a chord, it's that simple. Stick to the white notes and press 1, miss 1, press 1, miss 1, press 1. So we have a chord of 3 notes, what we call a triad. So that's the falling pattern, 1-7-6 on basic triads. If you want to get some more flavor, some more mood in there, we can add something called drone tones. Basically, pick a note, add it to all the chords. Great place to start is note 1. Good, good. Another good one to try is note 5. Good stuff. Now, let's think about rhythm. Let's try an early start on some of these. Syncopate them. Not sure. Let's try an 8th instead of a 16th. better. I think that's not going to work unless we add an extra chord stab beforehand. Let's try this. How's that sounding? Okay, we got there in the end. Apologies, I got distracted by rhythm. I need to show you the other chord progressions. That's the falling 176. If you need something a little less melancholy or chill, we can go the opposite direction. We can do a rising pattern. So we start on 1. We don't use note 2 very much, so we jump straight to 3, and 4 and 6 are a common closer that sounds good. You also have the option of just staying on the 4. Let's build our chords on top, keep to the white notes. Hopefully you can hear that's a little bit more uplifting. Let's see if that rhythmic push works on this one. It sounds like it's jumping around a lot. I'm going to shift some of the octaves, what we call revoicing the chord. Let's pick some common tones or drone tones. Now, you might notice we've not moved the bass yet. It doesn't have to. Most of these chords fit over note 1 on the bass. It's typically only chords 2 and 5 that don't work over a 1 bass. But we should certainly give it a go. Let's make the bass follow the chord progression. I think the F sounds better in the lower octave for the bass. So that's the moving bass. Let's try the pad. We need to get this on the right rotation. Let's use the lower F again. Pretty good. Nice. Next chord progression. I call this the drifting progression. It's a progression that never returns to the 1, or certainly doesn't stay there for long. The general idea is that we float around chord 6. Let's do a 6, 5, 6, 7. build the chord. Now, drifting progressions sound great with extensions, so let me add a seventh to all these. Except this one. I'm not a fan of sevenths on chord 7. You've heard me say that before. Instead, we just use the octave. Let's add even more vibes with another common tone. Let's try the 9th. Nice. Let's try that with the simple stab bass. Wrong octave. Follow the chords. Try one octave up. No, this deserves a pad bass, I think. Let me just grab the piano part. Oh, happy accident. You could turn that into a lead sound if you wanted. Here we go. Me likey. So that's the drifting progression. Let's get that synth pad in there. By the way, you'll find all of our earlier melodies will still work. That works because I've programmed most of the melody around the notes of chord 1. There's a few passing notes, like here, but most is from chord 1. If you saw my video called How to Chord Any Melody, the 164 trick, there's a lot of that going on here too. It's simply because most melodies hover around the 1, and chords 1, 4 and 6 all have note 1 in them. So basically everything we programmed earlier over that 1 A minor chord now fits on most chords. Okay, so the last type of chord progression I'm going to show you, I'm going to call it the mover. I'm going to change the bass for this. Turn this off. So this progression I'm going to call the mover, mainly because all the progressions so far have moved stepwise, whereas this one jumps around in bigger intervals or bigger distances. One great example is the progression from Knights of the Jaguar by DJ Rolando. That track had a chord progression of 1, 4, 3 and 5. Let's hear that. Like that. Let's try adding the pad chords to that. Put those in the right octave. All the white notes. might be able to hear this has a similar problem to the rising progression in that it sounds like it's jumping around too much. So let's change some octaves and find as many common notes as possible. Let's make more of this A here. C can go here. Let's drone this tone. Let's put the A all the way through. Just trying to keep all the notes in the same area as possible. Still the same chords, just revoicing them so they don't call attention to themselves when the chord changes. I think that might be better with the A at the top. Yep, much better. Let's hear that on piano. Tip, by the way, if you want a more realistic style of piano playing, you can shift the higher notes back because real piano players don't hit all the notes exactly at the same time. It feels nice to splay them out a little bit. It does relax the groove a little though, so keep that in mind. Pulling some things off the grid can make it sound a lot more natural though. This is organic house after all. Or if you have a controller connected, you can try playing the chords in and not quantizing them. I think we need to pull this one early. Not this one though. Another piano tip I should mention is you can add an octave. Ableton's Chord will do that for me. It's just the same as copying all the notes up one octave. So it sounds even better if you add some of that movement we had earlier. Play with the velocity. Yep. Good stuff. Okay, on to the final details. For the last drop, I'm thinking about what we can pick up the pace with. One of the common options in this genre is a cowbell. Let's have a look here. Yep, that's sounding good. Let's add that as a sample. And I'm just going to place it on the 3rd and 4th 16ths. My muso ears want this to be in tune. It doesn't have to be, but that's the way my ears work. It's sounding better to me that way, anyway. Okay, next, let's look at some offbeat hi-hats, or shakers or something. Let's search for hat. PML seems to have something. One shots. Oh, perfect. First one. That was easy. Oops, we need to add a MIDI track. Offbeat eighths. Ouch. A little bit loud, that. There we go. It's coming together. Nice. And I think lastly, just some sound effects for when we drop. I found a couple of these noises in the Black Octopus free sample pack earlier. One called Leviathan and the other Psytrance, of all things. But at low enough volumes, they were certainly gentle enough for this track. Okie dokie. So that is all the ingredients you need to put together your own organic house tracks. I hope you learned something. If you did, you know what to do. Please press some buttons for me. Or if you're feeling extra generous, you can buy me a coffee from the link in the description. And until next time, I'll see you in the comments. Bye-bye.